If my dad hadn't told me this himself, I wouldn't have believed it. But you know, some things are just so strange that you can't help but believe them. This happened when my dad was young, around the time he had just married my mom. They lived in a small remote village in Dongning County, Heilongjiang, surrounded by dense forests. Winters were brutal there, especially around New Year when the snow was so thick it was hard to even walk. Everyone in the village looked forward to New Year's Day, a time to celebrate with something special. But on the eve of that particular New Year, my dad experienced something he would never forget. It was December 31st. My mom asked my dad to go up the mountain and hunt some game for the New Year's feast. Meat wasn't easy to come by in the village, and they needed something special for the celebration. So my dad grabbed his hunting rifle, took the dog, put on his thick coat, and headed out. The forest was eerily quiet. The only sounds were the crunching of snow underfoot and the dog's heavy breathing. As night fell, the snow came down harder, making it nearly impossible to see. My dad had been wandering for nearly 2 hours without spotting anything and was starting to think it was just bad luck. Then his dog suddenly stopped and let out a low whimper. My dad followed the dog's gaze and saw a white fox standing not far away in the snow. The fox was stunning, with pure white fur and an especially long tail. The oddest thing, though, was the bright red ribbon tied around its tail. My dad said the ribbon looked fresh and clean, a sharp contrast against the snowy landscape. Without thinking much, he saw it as a good catch. He crouched down, aimed his rifle, and fired. Bang! The shot echoed through the forest, but the fox was too quick and leapt aside. My dad fired twice more, and on the third shot he thought he hit the fox's leg. It limped away, leaving a trail of blood in the snow, disappearing into the deeper woods. The dog wanted to chase it, but my dad hesitated. He felt a strange unease in his chest, as if something wasn't right. In the end, he decided to head back home, thinking it was better to call it a day. When he returned, my mom was busy at the stove. She complained when she saw him empty-handed, but my dad just brushed it off, saying the snow was too heavy and there wasn't much game out there. They settled for what they already had, but that night things got strange. Around midnight, my dad was half asleep when he heard noises outside the window. It sounded like low animal cries mixed with what seemed like a woman's soft sobbing. The sounds came and went, sending chills down his spine. Curious and uneasy, he got up, threw on a coat, and opened the door. Outside, he saw footprints in the freshly fallen snow. Despite the heavy snowfall, the prints were sharp and clear, leading toward the forest. On the doorstep, he found a piece of red ribbon, identical to the one tied to the fox's tail. A wave of panic set in. He slammed the door shut, barred it with a wooden stick, and pretended nothing had happened. But the eerie sounds continued through the night, only fading as dawn broke. The next morning, New Year's Day, my dad seemed distracted and uneasy. By noon, he lay down on the heated brick bed and dozed off. That's when he had the dream. In the dream, the white fox appeared, but it had transformed into a tall woman dressed in a flowing red robe. Her face was pale, her eyes cold and piercing. She spoke to him.
I thought you were lost in the snow and I wanted to guide you, but you repaid kindness with cruelty. Do you know what the consequences are?
My dad tried to apologize, but the woman only laughed coldly.
Tonight, I will come to take what is mine,
she said. That evening, the family gathered around the stove for dinner. My dad was restless, his eyes darting toward the window every so often. Suddenly, a strong wind howled outside, shaking the windows violently. Then, there was a knock at the door. The knock was soft, almost like fingertips lightly tapping on the wood. My dad grabbed a wooden stick and cautiously asked, "Who is it?" There was no answer, only the sound of the wind. But the knocking continued. My mom was terrified, holding her breath and staying silent. For a moment he froze, gripping the wooden stick tightly as his heart raced. Summoning his courage, my dad opened the door. Standing outside was a stunningly beautiful woman, tall and graceful, wearing a bright red robe. Her face was deathly pale, almost like paper. She said nothing, only pointed a finger at my dad before turning and vanishing into the snowy darkness. On the ground, she left a trail of footprints. The next day, my dad came down with a high fever that wouldn't go away. The village elders, upon hearing the story, claimed he must have offended a mountain spirit or the New Year beast, and advised him to make an offering to appease it. Desperate, my mom killed 3 chickens, prepared a large pot of pork, and added one of my dad's old jackets. She brought everything to the edge of the forest, knelt in the snow, and prayed,
"Oh, great mountain spirit, forgive us for our ignorance. Please spare our family."
After that, my dad's fever gradually subsided, but he never spoke of the white fox again. And every year, as New Year approached, he would avoid going out to hunt, locking the doors and windows tightly, and lighting a stick of incense in silent prayer for peace.